Um, Today we have Grant come back to us again. We're gonna talk about growing old together. We have a couple questions. We have talking about 911 and okay, that's all done. And now we were thinking about is how we're gonna do next. So we have a question for Gray. This is kind of very long, so I'm gonna just spread it out. This project is tied into our growing old together community prevention of dementia. What's your plan for growing old? And do you have any community to grow old together? Who are they? And they are, and hopefully this something will happen to you. And then what would you do for prevention for dementia? What you want your wife and other family member to do for you afterward? Yeah, go ahead.
So my wife and I have been professional workers our entire life.
Mhm,
And we do not have any children by choice,
mhm,
a decision that my wife now regrets, but I don't. We do have a rescue dog, a lab
mhm,
border collie,
mhm,
plenty of nieces and nephews and godchildren, which we love and care about as
mhm,
if they were our own.
mhm,
So what I know about dementia, I know that it can impact any person at any time.
mhm,
We're both engaged. My wife and I are both engaged in life.
mhm,
That we continue to be very busy with a lot of projects, and I think that helps keep the brain healthy.
mhm. I
We are,
agree.
yeah, physical fitness too.
Mhm,
We pay attention to that.
mhm,
We watch what we eat, although we're
mhm.
not perfect. I mean, we do like
Some
our,
temptation, right?
yeah, stuff that's probably not too good for you, but we don't
Mm.
go in excess of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we try to watch that,
Mhm,
and we've talked about our wishes with caregiving, whether
mhm,
it's a terminal illness or anything
mhm,
like that. And one of the things I would never want to be on life support or things like
mhm.
that.
Right.
But the caregiving decision is going to be made by the other person
Mhm,
entirely depending upon the severity of the impairment
mhm,
and the ability of the other person to provide care.
mhm,
I do know some people that have different levels of dementia.
mhm,
Some that are very low level are being managed quite well with medication.
mhm,
And then there's others that, my uncle, for example,
mhm,
as he got older, he had long-term, his long-term memory was good, but his
mhm,
short-term memory was
mm,
gone. So
mhm,
he got to a point where he got in a car and went for a drive, and actually ended up calling his daughter and
mhm,
saying, I don't know where I'm at.
mhm,
But if you ask them a question about 30 years ago, he
mhm,
knew it like that.
mm.
And that was very frustrating for him,
Exactly.
that he could remember stuff from long ago. So
Mhm,
again, you know, it depends on, we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it,
mhm,
and whether it's for myself or for my wife. And like I
mhm,
said, it depends on the severity of the impairment.
mhm,
And I know that it is difficult for
mhm.
some families, and
Right.
especially like not leaving them alone.
Mhm,
And I know in law enforcement that they do have programs where the household can register that address with the police, so
oh,
that they're familiar ahead of time if there is someone with dementia at
oh,
that address. So little things like that.
mhm.
But other than that, I have not done any more in-depth research about it. So if there's anything more in detail that
Yeah,
you.
I would like to share that is one of the video I've sent you. This is like one of our Taiwanese doctor, because his mother has dementia, and later on he find a way to taking care of her is build a house living with her together. So I kind of break into is a lot of different kind of prevention we can do. Is I know a lot of people are doing that right now is I think using train our brain to do something different, like for example the music
Mhm.
and musical instrument. Like I want to learn play piano and I have not done that yet. I want to learn violin. I have not done that yet. So I kind of want to bring into different stage of life. Like, okay, now I'm age 50, 60, and then maybe you want to do something like, so right now, if you have not done any musical instrument in the past, so your brain never would have ever have a knowledge to adapt that. So you train your brain to get into something new, or something like language. I think two things is very important: language and musical instrument. Especially one thing you had to know is you had to be, you have to have interest. Without interest, people is not, you don't have drive. I think important to find the drive. Drive is more like, if I can, for example, if you can speak "I love you" in Chinese to your wife, how would you feel? So I kind of open a class like teaching Chinese to law enforcement in Africa right now. So I want them to learn a second language. If they happen to have a victim is Chinese, they cannot. They had to find interpreter, but that was so urgent, you cannot find interpretation. Then if the police officer can speak Chinese, then he can, simplify some language to comfort the victim in a way. So yeah, my logic is something new. Like I want to learn Japanese, I want to learn Spanish, because in Taiwan, in our history, we have been controlled by Japanese government for a long time. So my parents can speak Japanese because of the environment. And I have some friend, I speak Japanese once in a while. But right now, YouTube is the best way to learn tools. You can learn music from YouTube, you can learn language from YouTube, one day. And then I think I kind of talked to some couple here, but they're not really have a drive. It's you and your wife can learn something together. That you become her teacher, she become your teacher, something new. So it's more like experimenting, like something you never did before. So if your life is in law enforcement, and then do something different, embrace some interest. That's my concept about how to bring this program together.
Yeah, my wife is actually bilingual. She's Hispanic. She's
right. You mentioned about that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's Puerto Rican, so she's very fluent in Spanish.
And how about you?
I know just enough to be dangerous.
So you cannot communicate with her to.
I can understand more than I can speak it. Like if I hear, so I took 4 years of it in Spanish in high school.
Yeah, I heard that all the time.
But that was more that was more writing.
Yeah, but just taking a great elective class.
Yeah, but when I'm listening to a conversation, I can pick up the gist of it. Not every word for word, but I can pick up certain meanings and stuff.
Yeah, I understand.
And my travels around the world, which she's traveled with me, that Spanish came in handy because
very handy.
We went to Paris one time when I was working, and in Paris, that's a different culture as far as everything is not rushed, right? It's like you take your time, and you go to the restaurant and it takes them 10 minutes to come over to you. You get you get your water and it's another 10 minutes. You get the menu, it's another 10 minutes. And when I was
working, 2 hours to eat a meal.
Yeah, and it's like when I was working, I didn't have much time, and it's like, luckily, we got more done when my wife just started speaking Spanish to them. And she explained to them, listen, my husband's here working. We don't have a lot of time. We don't want to be rude with rushing through, but we really need to order our food and get our food and get this done. So, you reminded me too of, I don't know if you've ever seen this. If you go to YouTube and just type in some wording, I'm pretty sure it's Chinese. It's either Chinese or Japanese. I don't remember which.
Okay.
But just Google white guy speaks Chinese or white guy speaks Japanese, right? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
There's this, if you just do that.
Okay.
So this guy, he's not very old. He's a young guy, but he was born and raised, or he was raised in either Japan or China. I don't remember which.
Okay.
But I promise you'll find it if you put white guy speaks either Chinese or Japanese. And he's a white looking American, but he is fluent. I think it's Chinese. I think he's fluent in the language. And so what he does is he goes around, like in New York City, he goes around and he has someone filming it. He goes into a Chinese restaurant and he'll start out with English, you know, and then the waitress will come over and at some point he goes into the native language, and he is so proficient that the waitress, you know, the reaction of the people are like looking at him like, whoa, where's this coming from? You don't look it, but your speech is impeccable. It's like perfect. And then there's a couple of videos where the people sitting around, or all of a sudden they're looking at him. It's the funniest thing. I'm sure you can find it. It's like he's got like probably 10 or 11 videos that he goes into these different restaurants or businesses and goes into and they all compliment him. They go, you speak very well, you know.
So funny. I wonder what kind of profession he has.
I don't remember. I don't remember, but he's a younger person. But if you find his videos, there's his story. He has some there. His story is somewhere in there about what he does and all that kind of stuff and his background. But it's pretty entertaining.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. So I just want to see is, do you have any plan? Like, you are still teaching. You say you want to teach until 70, right?
I think so. But I could change my mind. You know, I'm gonna be 65 in March.
But I still have 5 years.
Yeah, so I still have 5 years, and I'm happy with what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing.
Right.
But once I reach 70, the other thing that it's important to me is that because I'm retired from the Secret Service, you know, because they have mandatory retirement, as we talked about before.
57.
57, yeah. And, you know, that's way too young to just don't do anything.
But that is really a physical fitness issue, though. You know, you're 57, you think you can still keep maintained by 60?
You know what? I will tell you this, both all the way around. I think it's good. I think it's good to get out because that is very demanding. It's demanding intellectually, emotionally, it's demanding physically. And you know, we can't do what we used to do, you know.
Exactly.
So I don't have a problem with that. But so every government law enforcement like that gets out at 57, they all do something else. They don't. I don't know anybody. You know, I don't know anybody that doesn't do anything. But then so I was interested in teaching because I was invited to be a guest speaker for a couple of college classes in criminal justice, and after I got done doing it, I said, wow, this is kind of fun. I loved interacting with the students. They had good questions. They were a lot of fun. And as I was nearing when I was going to want to retire, you know, pull the plug, I was thinking about what am I going to do when I leave? And because of those guest speaking, I said to myself, wow, this is something that I think I would be interested in. So that's what I began to pursue while I was still working. And I tell my students about networking.
Yeah, exactly.
Everywhere I went, I told whoever I met that I'm looking for a teaching job. And that's how, I mean, by word of mouth is somebody called me up. Yeah, a friend called me up and said, hey, this place is looking for a full-time criminal justice professor. And then I applied, and you'll like this story.
Okay.
So, and my friend warned me about this. He said, because, you know, college, PhD, you know, university.
Yeah, exactly.
PhD,
that's what I'm saying. How did you get it?
You know, they kind of, they're like up here.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
You know, I have a master's degree, but I don't have a PhD.
Yeah,
but
like I do.
So one of the questions that they asked me was, well, you don't have any teaching experience. And I said to them, and I was prepared for this. And I said, well, you know, I kind of feel like that college student at 22, 23 years old, when you first graduate from college, and they say, well, you don't have any experience. It's like, well, somewhere somebody has to give you that first job. I don't care what the job is. Your first job teaching, your first job, in engineering, chemistry, you name it, you have to have that first chance. And I said, I kind of feel like that now. That's like, but I said this, I said, listen, I've been in law enforcement. I was a police officer for 7 years and a federal agent for 20, almost 30 years, 22 years. So that's 30 years of practical experience, real world experience working on the street. I do have a master's degree. And I said, I did put training together for Secret Service. I went to get certified to teach in the state of Ohio Police Academy, which you have to go to instructor school. So I just said, if with all of that, with all of my background, if I'm not qualified to teach introduction to criminal justice, I'm like, I don't know what you're looking for, right?
Yeah,
and I say this too, no disrespect to people that have PhDs, but for example, when I teach about writing a search warrant or getting an affidavit for a search warrant and executing a search warrant, what I do in my classes is I'll show you what I did. I'll show you a case I worked on. I'll show you an affidavit I wrote. I'll show you a plan, an operations plan that I created. I said, your PhD, some of them, again, nothing against them, but a lot of them is like, they got their bachelor's degree, they got their master's degree, they got their PhD, now they're teaching. And it's like, I worked the streets for 30 years, and we can talk from practical experience to say, this is what happened to me, and these are situations, and here's things you think about. So that's, and my students appreciate that. So, so where I'm at now with my career is one thing that I'm cognizant of is I don't want to be too old so that I'm irrelevant. I don't think students want some old person up there to say what I did 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so what I try to do now is, and you see from my LinkedIn page, I'm very active and I still teach for the police academy. I teach crisis intervention training for in-service police officers. I'm working with the ADAMS board, the Alcohol, Drug Addiction and Mental Health Services Board, that's working with the Cleveland police because they had been put under a consent decree after they were sued for excessive force. So I'm still involved in all that. So that's what as long as I'm doing that, I can show my students and say, look, I'm retired. I'm done being a police officer. I'm done being a federal agent, but I'm taking those skills and these are the things I'm doing now. So I'm still relevant. So, but I'm still cognizant of age and how long do you stick around? There's some people that here's the other thing too, and this maybe helps with the mind and dementia is I never was a person that was defined solely by my job. I had outside interests. When I went home from work, I had other things that I wanted to do. There's a lot of people, and I feel sorry for them, that job, that career, they're so defined by that, that if they lose that, they're lost. And I don't know if you know anybody like that. I know people, they didn't want to retire and they were forced to retire, and then they sat around, they didn't know what to do. We had, this is funny, when I was first a police officer, when we were newer officers, we worked the midnight shift. And the senior officers worked the day shift. And what happened was there was a group of 3 or 4 officers that were retiring, and they were old. They would, because they worked day turn shift, right? After they retired, they used to come to the police station at 5 o'clock in the morning when shift change would be, because they missed it. And they wanted to sit around and have coffee and talk with everybody. And I remember us younger guys, we were like looking around going, man, you're not going to see me when I retire. Like come back here at 5 o'clock in the morning, because you know what I mean? So I have a lot of outside interests. I have a lot of outside hobbies, so that I'm okay, that I'm not going to regret at all when I do decide I'm not going to teach anymore. And like I said, I don't want to be irrelevant, and I don't want to be looked at it too old. And I figure 70 is probably where I think is a good stepping point away.
Right. You know, I have a kind of interesting one thing to put about is, have you find a group of people that have the same interest and then you do regularly? Like, you know, when you younger, you have sport. Then when you older, what do they do in a group of people? Have you have in that?
So the group of friends, like I like cars and car racing and stuff like that.
Oh.
So I will do activities with those people that are my friends. My coworkers are my friends, and then my wife, her coworkers are my friends. So we kind of do stuff with her friends and do stuff with my friends. So yeah, we have a group of friends that go back a long time. So and the good thing is that they all have different backgrounds and different interests. So it's not like all the same group of people. It's not always the same thing. I would tell you this, that my wife's current job with the TV station here in Cleveland, they hired a lot of young, reporters.
Of course.
What's been really fun for me is my wife is like a mentor to them, really a mother to them.
Right.
And she's been inviting them over, and I've become friends with them too.
Right.
And I really enjoy having a good relationship with the younger generation, because a lot of times older people will say, oh man, these younger kids, blah blah blah, but these group of co-workers of my wife's that are younger, they are so talented. They are so good, and we just get along so well, and it's like it really makes me feel young again, that I can laugh with them, and that they appreciate being around us. So that's very rewarding to have friends in that category that are so young.
Yeah, that is in our generation. We have in Taiwan, we used to have it's called Mockingbird kind of program, like the youth. The elderly teach the youth. But it's more like professional way, but it's not like a message social. It's more like for example, if the engineer is retired, then they will have a group of young engineers. So it's something like will pass down the knowledge.
Yeah.
And they will teach them. I think that would be somehow similar to that mentorship program. So I think that is really great too. So is that something you want to challenging, you and your wife want to do something new? Like you never done before, something you both want to try?
Well, my wife probably would, but I don't. And I can't remember if I told you this before when we were talking, but as you can see, if you go on my LinkedIn page, I traveled a lot.
Okay.
And, my job, whether it was within the United States or around the world, I traveled a lot. And in the beginning, it was fun, it was exciting, but at some point it gets old. And especially after 9/11, after 9/11, the travel became much more difficult because of all the security checks and things like that. And so when I would be on vacation, my wife would be like, where are we going? And I go, I said, the last thing I want to do is pack a bag and get on an airplane, because that to me is work,
Yeah, exactly.
And so the older I got, the less I wanted to travel. So like right now, and like I said, if you see, I've been around the world. I've been to Paris, London, Egypt, just
Asia too.
Yeah. And so it's like, there's nowhere I really want to go. I enjoy staying around the house, and, my dog, I have my dog, and, I enjoy that kind of stuff. So traveling, I don't really want to do it. My wife still wants to do it. So she'll take periodic trips. She took my nieces to Puerto Rico last month. So I don't know. She respects that I don't want to travel anymore, but I don't stop her from traveling. But so I'm completely content with my life right now.
Okay. How about writing a book? A lot of people retire from your field, a lot of people are thinking about writing a book.
I did. I was a co-author on a book.
Okay.
There's a link to it on my LinkedIn. So I did co-author 2 chapters on a book. I didn't like the publisher too much, but it wasn't a fun experience. I can just say that. Now maybe if we had a more positive interaction, I would have liked it more. But I did it. I thought about doing more, but I have notes together on my hobby stuff, and that might be something. If I do some kind of publication, I'm gonna do it pertaining to my hobby and collecting and stuff like that.
Not really about your law enforcement experience.
It wouldn't be law enforcement. It would be the car racing, the racing stuff.
Okay.
You know, like I collect Hot Wheels cars.
Okay. So what's your goal in life for now? You know, like 5 years from now, or?
Well, like I said, I'm going to
Really
turn I'm going to turn 65 in March. I'm going to take it one day at a time. One semester at a time. I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready now for fall semester. We go back in middle of August, and I will, you know, like I said, if I do another 5 years, or maybe I'll come home one day and go, hey, I don't, you know, I'm ready to completely retire right now. I don't know. I go by how I feel like right now. And you know this, to try to predict how are you going to feel a year from now, 2 years from now, I don't know.
Right.
And again, like your health and things like that will obviously come into play. So. But honestly, I don't fret about that. I really don't. I don't let it bother me too much. I'm like, I'm happy what I'm doing. I know where I want to cut it off. But what happens in between there depends on circumstances.
How about the 911? Do you think the 9/11 will always the part of that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, around my office in here, you know, this is all 9/11 stuff.
Yes,
here.
I can see that.
The helmet I wore, the respirator I wore. This is a piece from the Pentagon. This is stuff from Ground Zero. Here you see I have some pictures and all that. Yeah, it's always going to be a part. But like I said, it's not a negative. And you see, United States just got that El Sawari.
Now what am I missing?
He was the other mastermind of 9/11 with Osama bin Laden. They just got him in Afghanistan. So, yeah, like I said, I have a lot of my awards, and my wife's awards are up here. And you know, like I said, I'm totally happy where I am right now.
All right, thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for the media project, and we're gonna be showing everybody in the September 11th. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was nice meeting you.
Hopefully see you in the party. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye now.